Hi everyone, just waiting for people to come in, and Shane is having a little bit of trouble getting on board. So whoa. Still having some technical issues with the Hangout on Air. Really want Shane to be in on this. I don't think I can make you an admin. So right, I think we may just have to push ahead. Yeah, the admin link is not working. That's a real shame. Okay, we're going to take 2 minutes. I'm going to try and create a new login for Shane. Great. Thank you for bearing with us, guys. Right, so we're gonna kick off. Hopefully, Shane is going to be able to join us in just a few minutes. So I'm Ben Hunt. Shane will be here along, hopefully, in just a few minutes, and we're going to be presenting on when CRO goes wrong. I'm the author of a book called Convert, came out in 2011. I've been doing conversion optimization since about 2009. Shane runs his own business, Thrive Themes, Thrive based on building some, I'm a huge fan of Shane's business, that's how I got to know him, building conversion-focused WordPress tools. Some really, really good themes, really good editors, but enough of all that. Okay, what are we gonna do in this session? Right, so a lot of marketers, a lot of internet marketing gurus will tell you that they've discovered some kind of marketing secret, some holy grail, some secret sauce, some magic bullet. Generally, they're lying to us. And conversion rate optimization is one of those magic bullets that people try and sell, right? And this is what we want to be talking about today, because marketing, basically the people who sell courses and the people who sell books in how to do this stuff will tell you that this is for you, this is for everyone. If you're not doing it, you're leaving money on the table, right? Don't believe them, okay? This is not going to be that kind of talk. I'm sure there's some amazing presentations going on the rest of CRO Day today. This is going to be slightly different, because most talks and presentations will be positive and upbeat and suggest that there's this best practice and promising takeaways that you can take and you can apply in your marketing straight away. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to mess with your head a little bit. We're going to take a look into the dark side of CRO, when it doesn't work, right? We're going to look at why or when you shouldn't be using this, or you shouldn't rely on it. Because the truth is, some of the time, conversion rate optimization is not your friend. It can lead you astray. It can lie to you, right? We're told that numbers never lie, but you know, have you also heard the quote? There's lies, damned lies, and statistics. Well, CRO is potentially great for that. So what we want you to get from this is we want to leave you with a kind of healthy level of cynicism, right? A pragmatic, wise, more scientific kind of approach, so that you can go forward knowing when CRO is going to serve you, but also how to make it do your bidding. So yeah, still not able to get Shane on the line. So this is really distressing. Because Shane needs to be doing this. Right, we're just going to have to push on, I think. So here's the thing, right? Conversion rate optimization can give you some information. It can give you some data, give you some numbers, which can suggest that you are doing something positive, that you're achieving something that's worthwhile. Sometimes that isn't true. So the first thing that we have to ask is, can you trust the numbers? Now, this is Shane's slide, so unfortunately I can't speak to that, but if we can get Shane on board, we'll come back and talk about this, right? But the bottom line is, basically, from this example, is that from this test that Shane ran in his own business, I believe the statistics that the conversion rate tools were telling him about conversions simply didn't match the reality. So what they found was that you should not only track what your CRO tool is telling you, also look at analytics, but also use any other tools, any other data sources that you can find. And the bottom line is that it's going to come down to something that's most important for your business. Now, so we're going to start getting heretical now, okay? Did you know that high conversion rates sometimes doesn't mean more conversions? Right, this is a great example from Shane's business at Thrive. This was like a lightbox pop-up that was appearing on his site with a promotion. Okay, very simple. It's got some benefits on there: name, email address, and get the instant access to the lead magnet. Now, here's the test that they ran. Okay. The option A was that lightbox would appear after 3 seconds. Option B, the lightbox appeared after 45 seconds. And look at the difference in conversion rate. The conversion rate for option B was almost 3 times what it was for option A. And we're taught to think that conversion rate is a great thing, right? Conversion rate can solve all your problems. Well, maybe it doesn't, right? Look at this. Option A was run to 1,000 people. So was option B, right? Option A, because it appeared after only 3 seconds, was seen shown 985 times, whereas option B was only shown 314 times, resulting in 35 new registrations or leads. But option A actually got more new leads. The conversion rate was significantly lower, but the conversions were actually higher, right? So what we have to think is that conversion rate is not a an independent number. There are things that affect it, and those things can have other knock-on effects. So you've got to decide what you're measuring and be really clear on what you're actually going to track. Here's another one. When conversions don't necessarily mean profits. This is an example. This is a test that I ran. This was for a fairly big client, about $1 million per month turnover. And the details of what we're testing isn't really important. And I was using convert.com, which is my preferred tool. Now look at the results. So the graph shows, yes, there seems to be a clear divide between the original in blue and the variation. The table below shows that, yeah, indeed, we've got over 97% confidence that variation 1 is going to win. And it's saying that we've got over 53% improvement in conversion rate, right? And that's got to be a great thing. We've increased our turnover by 53%. Well, actually we haven't, because convert.com, like many tools will let you connect your Google Analytics. And if you're tracking e-commerce data in your Google Analytics, then you can start to measure the difference in turnover or spend instead of just conversion rate. So when we switch to measuring revenue instead of measuring conversion rate, the numbers are significantly different. Right? The improvement in revenue per visitor was actually only about 36%, not 53%. Right? So it's the third lower. And you'll also notice that the confidence level is only 87%, and you can't take that to the bank. Really, I look for 99% confidence before I think about stopping a test, right? So conversion rate doesn't necessarily mean, higher conversion rate doesn't necessarily mean higher revenues. So the question is, what matters to your business? Because if we blindly follow conversion rate, we could end up, theoretically, with less revenue or less of whatever it is that's important to you. And I tried to find a test where the conversion rate was higher but the revenue was lower. But generally, yes, they do tend to correlate, but they're not exactly tied together. There's lots of reasons why this could be. It could be that the change that you've made makes your offer maybe more appealing to one segment of your audience and less appealing to another segment of your audience. It may be more appealing to a segment that is greater in number, but who spends less, right? And less appealing, possibly, to your ideal customers. So we need to think about all of this. So let's just talk about the revenue myth, okay? Now, a couple of years ago, I was all about, 2 or 3 years ago, I was saying it's about traffic, it's about conversions. Traffic and conversions and conversion rate are what it's all about, right? We need to get as much traffic as possible, and we need to get our conversion rate as high as possible, right? That makes sense. It's mathematical, right? So what that tends to, again, the received wisdom, word on the street, conversion rate multiplied by, how many visitors can you get, multiplied by their average spend, will give you your total revenue, right? That seems to make perfect sense. Look, there's an equation. Of course it makes sense. However, it ain't necessarily so. Because whatever you do to increase your conversion rate, for example, could also have an impact on the average spend. So you can't say that your revenue per visitor from last month, if we can increase our conversion rate by 5% this month, that we'll get 5% more spend, right? So we can't take these things as gospel truth, Okay, so the revenue myth is one of the things that we should give consideration to, but don't just assume that it's true. Stunning, isn't it? So we need to be thinking. Conversion rate optimization is the name of this discipline that we use. Is it about conversion rate? What are we actually doing? You know, we're doing marketing, right? We're in the business of creating customers, creating new sales, and conversion rate. What does it actually mean? It's part of that. It's part of that, but what kind of traffic are we getting and what kind of conversions are we achieving? It may be possible, for example, to increase your baseline conversion rate by doing something that harms your business. Hey, dropping your prices to the point that you make a loss could increase your conversion rate, but that's not necessarily healthy. Here's an example Shane put together. We could have 3 options for a product or whatever that you can sign up for, $49.99 and $199, right? Now, if you were to remove the prices off those, you might find that the click-through rate goes higher, right? But is that going to increase conversion rate? As in the ultimate conversion rate? And is it going to generate more revenue? You just don't know, right? More click-through rate doesn't necessarily mean a higher conversion rate, more conversions, or more revenue. So here's another myth. Again, this is very much like the revenue myth, okay? And this one says that, and look, I wrote this in my book in 2011, okay? So I'm responsible. Click-through rate multiplied by click-through rate multiplied by click-through rate, right? Eventually gives you your overall conversion rate. So what it actually is you know, how many people go to the top of your funnel, and then at each step through, how many people go through. So what this suggests to us is that if you can increase any of these individual numbers, then you will therefore increase your overall conversion rate, right? And that's just not necessarily true. And it's for the same reason as the revenue myth, okay? So let's say that you increase click-through rate A, okay? What this isn't showing you is that the actions that you take and the changes that you make, right, are not included in this equation. This equation is oversimplistic, right? So the changes that you make to click-through rate A may have a detrimental effect on click-through rate B or click-through rate C, for example. Say, for example, you know, that you change your ad to say free money for everyone here. You're going to increase the click-through rate, right? But what's that going to do to the ultimate conversion rate? Probably, if you promise something and then fail to deliver on that promise, then your trust is going to be diminished and people aren't going to convert. Right? So it's, you know, we need to get out of this idea that we can focus on these small areas, on these small sections. Right? So it's just one more area where the classic conversion rate approach may actually be unhelpful for us. So, give me 1 second. So, what should we be testing? Well, it would seem to make sense that if we're not going to test conversion rate every time, and maybe if it doesn't work to split things down into testing those individual steps of click-through rate, we need to be testing the ultimate measure, right? The ultimate result, what we're about. So should we be testing for revenue? I mean, my example from that client would suggest if the business is concerned in making money, then we should do that. Generally, this is probably a good idea. However, it's probably worth adding that not every business has the same strategic concern with revenue. For example, I've got one conversion rate client at the moment who is interested in gaining market share. If they were interested in maximizing revenue, that may come as a cost to gaining market share. Amazon deliberately, strategically, purposely ran at a loss. Every time when they started out selling books and when they added music and movies and stuff like that, each of those new strands, those new business arms that they added, ran deliberately at a loss. It was a loss leader for a period of time so that they could gain market share. So Shane is going to talk you through this bit. What we're illustrating here is that the ecosystem of your customer journey and of your relationship with your customers is very, very complex. And just by testing individual sections of this may lead us into a false sense of security that we're doing the right thing, that we're doing something that's good for our business. Say here, for example, customer clicks add to cart, goes to checkout, and completes a purchase, right? Now, a lot of us will stop there, won't we? Because this is measurable. It's what we like. It's a nice, short, measurable funnel. But the bottom line, guys, is that the world of marketing and the world of people and the way that they think and the way they relate to us is not, very often, not a short, measurable funnel. Your customer lifetime value is something that is influenced by so many different things. So here, after the customer is bought, right, will they require support, right? Because support could mean a cost. If they're your ideal kind of customer, they could refer new customers, right, which can then generate multiple new revenues for you. But if you're just measuring conversion rate on that initial, for every new visitor, this kind of stuff is not revealed. What about renewal? In Shane's business runs on an annual renewal cycle. That's practically impossible to test, isn't it? When the event only happens once every year, right? What about upgrading? What about downgrading? What about cross-selling over time? There's a lot more things happening than just who pulls out their credit card and completes the purchase. Okay. Conversion rate optimization also very often doesn't take into account the cost of acquisition of a customer, right? How much do you invest in SEO or content marketing? It's relatively easy to do when you're using pay-per-click, but pay-per-click, again, is only one of the options that's available to us. And here's the thing. When you boil down marketing, when you reduce it only to things that can be measured over a relatively short time scale, you reduce it, right? What you're getting is you're getting an artificially simplified picture. And that can be reassuring and it can feel nice. And it can give us numbers that we can point to and say to our colleagues and our bosses and our clients, look, we've increased something, well done, right? And we then have to take it on faith that that thing that we increased will ultimately turn into a long-term benefit, but it ain't necessarily so. So, let's get really heretical now. This is the kind of thing that gets you burned at the stake. Does conversion rate even matter? It's a question that we have to ask ourselves. And I think that the answer has to be, yes, of course it matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. There are lots of factors, as we've looked at, customer lifetime value being one of them. But sometimes you may even get a customer that doesn't spend much, customer that doesn't generate any profit, but then who turns into a great referral for you, becomes a loyal tribe member. I'm running a course at the moment, and I've got 12 people. It's a small group. I've got 12 people all around the world who are on this course, and we're looking at every aspect of marketing. And the more we look at it, the more we realize how fuzzy it is. And we were looking at different ways that you can attract customers, all these different plethora of channels that we've got available to us today. And so we went through and said, okay, for each person on the call, how did they first come across me, my brand, my message? And it was fascinating because everybody had a different reason. Some people had been following me for 5 or 6 years, but I'd never seen their name before. I'd never communicated with them. There was no relationship that I was aware of, right? And nothing that could be measured. Yes, it would be a number on a mailing list, but ultimately then these are people who then crawl out of the woodwork 5, 6 years later and say, now this is the time. This is the time I'm going to join what you're doing, and I'm going to become part of the tribe. So can we estimate the value, the ultimate value of these relationships? No, I think it's practically impossible. So conversion rate is a sign. It's a measure. It's one dial on your dashboard, right? So yes, it matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. Okay, so conversion rate matters unless it doesn't. Yeah, it may be revenue that matters the most. It may be market share that matters the most. So I think the short answer for this is you need to decide what matters strategically for your campaign, right? And find the best way to measure that, and it ain't necessarily conversions. So let's just discuss some other aspects of where conversion rate can pull the wool over our eyes, and the classic split testing can maybe make us feel like we're achieving something, but not. This one of my favorite jokes is a tourist stopping to ask for directions in Ireland. So she sees an old fellow by the side of the road and says, ask for directions to Kilkenny or wherever it may be. And the old fella says, Kilkenny? Well, I wouldn't start from here, right? And very often when we are undertaking a conversion rate exercise, it's almost as though we're in that exact situation. Very often, you can't optimize from where you are. Optimization suggests, so I mean, we've already questioned the use of the words conversion rate, right? But what about optimization? Well, optimization suggests that we're going to reach the absolute best result that's available to us. Now, I would suggest that isn't even feasible, because what you'll find is that there's always going to be a ceiling on conversion rate. For example, you can't get above 100%. Okay. Now, the closer that you get to that natural ceiling, whatever that ceiling may be, it's going to be more and more difficult. And by that, then we mean it's going to take more and more resources. It's going to be more and more costly to increase conversion rate above that point. Okay. So, should we be trying to find optimal conversion rate? I would suggest we shouldn't. Okay. Now, a lot of us will say, here's my landing page. I want to optimize it. So what can we change? And we start changing things. We start changing things like background color, or the button color, or the wording on a form, or the number of fields on the form, right? We might change the feature image on the page. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that stuff. It may have statistically relevant increases in conversion rate, okay? However, that just because you're taking steps forward doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually going to reach optimal conversion. So maybe the whole idea of conversion rate optimization is misnamed in some way. So what we're talking about really, if you just try, it's so tempting for us to fiddle. It's tempting for us to try different button styles, different button sizes, different colors, right? It can have minor impacts, right? And they can be relevant impacts. But sometimes we shouldn't start from here. Sometimes there are fundamental factors or features in our branding, in our whole proposition, in the foundation of this communication that could actually be rethought, right? So if you're basically doing a turd polishing exercise, as is a technical term, then what you may find is that you get to what we call a local maximum, right? But that isn't necessarily the ultimate maximum, right? And also, don't test crap. This is another very common trap that you can fall into when you're starting to do conversion rate optimization, which is to say, okay, well, let's test this headline against, I need 3 other headlines. Come on, just chuck them at me, right? And you're testing random changes. It's almost like, through completely random mutation, you can improve something, right? You can get a better web page, a better campaign by just mixing up random mutations. Now that may work in nature, but it takes millions of years, right? You haven't got millions of years. So we can't afford to test silly, inane, crap ideas that aren't going to work. One of the other ways in which testing crap can lead you astray is that it can suggest to you that you've done something really cool. I saw an example just recently. It's from a few years ago, and I wrote a blog post on it, on Ryan Deiss's 43 split tests. And one of the things that is still online is he claims that we increased the conversion rate of this page by something crazy like 40% by changing the background color, right? So, turn that into internet marketing speak, and it says, discover the one change that you can make that can increase conversion rate by 43%. Now, here's the thing. There are lots and lots of options for background color for the page, right? Some of them may be awful. Some of them may be wrong. And if you test a crap variation against a decent variation and find that the decent variation performs 40% better than the crap one, that can suggest to you that you've discovered something that's given a 40% boost. But it hasn't if you're testing against something that was awful to start with. So don't do it. Don't test crap. Now, one of the other problems that we face, particularly when we are working on our own marketing, our own campaigns, or our own business, is we can just be too close to it. You literally can't see the wood for the trees. And it gets really, really difficult. I mean, for me, I find that working on my own marketing campaigns can often be the most challenging thing. If I look at my website, it's very hard to see what's wrong with my own website, whereas it's much easier to do it for clients, right? So what I find helps for me is to get some distance, right? Step away, then come back to it and make quick, bold decisions. And if there's really one takeaway from this, it's something that everybody says, and it's absolutely right. Don't test little fiddly changes, because you're wasting your time, you're wasting your testing cycles, you're wasting the optimization value of those visitors that are coming through. So test things that are worth testing. Test things that are significant, bold changes, right? There's also something that we call the "your baby is ugly" syndrome. And particularly when you're working with clients, that it's very difficult sometimes for clients to accept that their website has problems, that their marketing campaign has problems, because it's their baby. They did it, and we can get too close to stuff. I'd also like to share with you the what we call the ice cream conundrum. You may have come across this before, but it's really worth bearing in mind, because it's another way in which CRO can lead us down the wrong direction, can give us a red herring. Okay, so let's take an example of, you've got a guy who has an ice cream emporium, right? People can come in and order their ice cream, get a cone, walk out, pay their money. Now this guy, let's call him Angelo, he picks up a book on conversion rate optimization and realizes that this new magical thing could transform his business. So he decides to get scientific, because this is what you do. You have to measure. He's going to stop deciding what ice creams to put on display using his intuition, and instead he's going to be measured and scientific about it. So what does he do? Right? He makes a chart, and when people come in to Angelo's ice cream emporium, if they order strawberry, he puts a check mark against strawberry. So he's counting how many people order each of these particular flavors of ice cream. And then after 3 months, he's got statistical evidence to say that vanilla is the most popular ice cream, right? His conversion rate for vanilla is higher than strawberry and butterscotch and all these other flavors. So should Angelo throw all of his other recipes and his other ice creams away and serve only vanilla in his store? Well, of course he shouldn't. Of course he shouldn't. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But think about it. This is very often what we do, and the kind of result that we get when we go down a CRO route. You run a CRO campaign and it says, oh, this headline converts 5% better than that headline. What it could be telling you is that headline A works for 35% of the people who come to the site. Headline B works for 30% of the people who come to the site. Does that mean that headline A works better than headline B? Well, not necessarily, because headline B works for 30% of the people who come to the site. And maybe those people are a different group of people than the people who prefer headline A. So what should we do? Well, in Convert, I introduced this idea of multiplicity. That it's, we need to get out of the idea that it's an either or situation. Maybe it's a both and situation. Right? I've got a client right now who sells vitamin supplements, okay? And they've got different groups. They've got different groups of people who may be attracted to different headlines, different images, different benefits, right? So the reason why a male aged 50 or above might want to take vitamin and mineral supplements, okay, could be very different to the reason why a woman aged 25 might want to take supplements. And if you just split test one against the other, then what you may end up getting is an apparent conversion rate that simply just reflects the makeup of your audience, when what you should be doing is identifying these different segments within the market and running a page for each of those people, and running a pay-per-click ads for those people, running different social media messages that point to these individual pages. So we end up with an image that's of your website as not just a funnel where everyone lands on the homepage, everyone lands on your sales page or squeeze page, but instead it's more like a tree where there's multiple different landing pages for multiple different markets, and by doing that, you can speak to market A and to market B, not just the biggest market. So taking all this rubbish that we've been going on about into account, what can you do? I mean, what can you trust? If we're not going to measure conversion rate, and if we're not in the business of optimization, and if you can't really trust the data, what can you actually do? Well, one of the most important things, most important lessons to take away is, yes, let's let go of the assumption that conversion rate is everything and decide what matters. And here's the thing, you get to decide. If it's your campaign, you decide what matters. Is it how many new customers you can get, right? Even if they're not particularly profitable. Or is it literally down to turnover? Or is it down to profit? Or is it down to market share? Right? What's it down to? Or are you looking for customers, fewer customers who are going to spend the most, because then you're going to carry on marketing to those people, right? You decide what matters. Now, when it comes down to testing, we can help you there. There is definitely some experience in knowing what matters. You may not be able to read the detail on this. It doesn't matter particularly. But what I did was I took about 50 split test experiments that I'd run over a period of maybe 18 months. These are from lots of different clients, and some of them from my own sites. And then what I decided to do was to categorize those tests. Was I testing a style change, or a content change, or a content and style change? Okay. So, I mean, there's lots of examples in there. Typography change had a minus 10% impact. Logo and strapline change was content that had 35% impact, for example. So what I then did was I correlated the results. Okay. Now on here you can see in column number 1 represents the style changes only. Column number 2 is content changes only, and the third column is the ones where I tested both style and content changes together. Now, what you want to take away from this is particularly look at the style changes. And those of us who are addicted to testing page background colors and button colors and fonts and stuff like that, the biggest positive or negative change that I achieved, let me tell you, I've been a professional web designer since 1994, okay? And so with 20 years practically experience, the style changes that I made, the biggest margin of change was 9%, right? I never achieved an impact of more than 9% either way with a style change. Content changes tended to be in the 10 to 20% range, but sometimes, as you can see, 150%, right? Or negative 50%, and that's better. That it's better to get a negative 50% change than it is to get a plus 1% change, right? Because you've learned a lot more with a higher impact change. And when I was changing both content and style, again, it's a similar kind of pattern. 20, 30% was quite common, but 100, 200% was also possible. But if there's, one thing that you've really got to drive home from this, fiddling with style, fiddling with graphics and colors and fonts, yes, it can matter, but only a bit. So conversion rate optimization isn't about testing those little things. It's about where does the rubber meet the road? What actually matters the most? So this is a slide for Shane to say that there are things that can be measured with numbers, right? But when you reduce something to numbers, you reduce it. Necessarily, you reduce it. So use people. Speak to your customer service people. Speak to your salespeople. Speak to your customers. Actually talk to them. You can obviously there's lots of tools as well that will let you observe the way that people move through a site, questions that they've got. You can use live chat transcripts. But speak to people and try and get that qualitative insight into what's going on, and more importantly, why. Because if we just reduce it to a level of this color form versus this color form, then yes, it might give you a numerical result, but is it giving you intelligence? Is it helping you to understand why people behave in a different way? This is a statue of the Roman god Janus, who gives us is what the month of January is named after, right? It's the end of one year, the beginning of a new one. Now he's got two faces. At the same time, Janus looks back into the past and ahead into the future. And I find this a useful metaphor to remember, because when you're doing conversion changes, when you're trying to improve your marketing, let's put it that way, you have to look backwards, right? Looking backwards says, okay, well, what are the historical results from when we did this? What are the results from when we did that? Okay, that's hard data, and it's important because that's, you know, it's true. Those things are facts, okay? But just looking back doesn't tell you what could be better. So you've also got to look ahead, which means creativity and imagination, right? So you've got to be analytical and creative. And you've got to do this in a cycle, do both together. Try new things, imagine something that doesn't already exist and test that. But then look at the results and try and understand what they mean. So to sum up then, and you know, again, I apologize that you've only got to listen to one voice today, and that's a shame. Maybe we'll run it again separately and get you guys all a link to the recording. If people will tell you that some particular marketing channel, some particular technique or trick is killing it, you know, is if you're not doing this, you're leaving money on the table. Conversion rate optimization is one of those things that we tout, you know, that we say, oh, you've got to test, you must test. But the bottom line is there is no secret ingredient. There is no magic bullet. There is no holy grail for marketing. It's something else. And the key is in that mix of analysis and creativity. We've got to look at what we actually know. And we've got to try and understand it in terms of humans and emotions and behavior and why we do the things that we do. And we've got to look ahead. Got to look ahead at what could be done different, right? And we need to be bold, and we need to be imaginative, and we need to be creative. But if we think about what really matters, and this has been the focus of my work really for the last 2 years in particular, and trying to break down the elements of marketing that matter most, and not just mattering most for those short-term minor improvements that can be measured, but matter most in the ultimate sense of whatever it is that we're trying to do. And you know, some of us are, you know, we come out with a product and we want to sell it for 6 weeks and make as much money as we can, right? That's great, nothing wrong with that. So we run pay-per-click campaigns. We do an email blast with a JV partner, right? And we you know, do some rapid testing just to improve that bottom line conversion rate, because we're driving everybody to that landing page with that same kind of offer. So, you know, when you've got a campaign that really genuinely is a short measurable funnel, then classic CRO could be exactly the right approach. But many of us are not in that situation. That isn't our reality. For many of us, what we're actually wanting to do is to build a business, right? We want to build a tribe. We want to build something, grow something, and nurture something that isn't just going to generate some cash, some revenue over the next 6 weeks, but is going to generate value for us for years and years to come. And sometimes those things just can't be measured, or at least they can't be measured with, you know, a little JavaScript include on your website and some graphs and some numbers and a plus or negative certain percent. Sometimes you have to use other mechanisms. So this is the slide where Shane and I would, you know, debate our final point. And I think I can speak to mine. Mine would be to trust your instincts. Trust your instincts, Luke. They will lead you. They will lead you the right way. But don't necessarily believe anything. Right? Don't take anything as the ultimate answer. But at the same time, look at everything. Look at it with the eyes of a scientist, with the eyes of a child, and say, what can we actually learn from this? Is it something that we can reliably test with a split test and look at numerically? If it is, do it. Use it, right? Use these amazing tools that we've got. Sometimes there are things where you just need to trust your own intuition and say, I think we need to do this, not because we can prove it. Because if you only do the things that you can prove, that you can test and show are right, you're going to end up building something that's short-term and measurable and kind of maybe inert. But in the long term, you know, for those long-term things that are fuzzy, less easy to measure, then you need to rely on instinct. You need to rely to a degree on intuition. Okay, so our final message is comes from Confucius. It says, true wisdom is knowing what you don't know. Right? We started off by saying a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. And conversion rate tools and conversion rate methods can give you a little bit of knowledge. And that little bit of knowledge sometimes is not intelligence and it's not wisdom. And it can lead you off the path that you should be on. So take it, take that knowledge, look at what you know, and also appreciate that there's a big, fuzzy, emotional, soft world out there that you don't know as well. And when we accept all of that and all of it together, then we can move forward maybe in a wiser way to think about our marketing on many, many levels, not just in terms of pure numbers. So thank you again. Please accept my apologies again for only having me on the call. I hope it hasn't been too tedious. We certainly enjoyed putting this presentation together, and we'll try and run it again for you at some point in the near future. Okay, thanks again very much for your time.